Welcome to Talking Voiceovers, where we interview South Africa's industry professionals to inspire each other and newcomers. Today we'll be chatting to Murray Todd and how important it is to stick to your rates. Welcome to Talking Voiceovers, Murray.
Thank you very much. It's lucky to be here finally. All good. Loving
really
the work
great.
You're doing. It's amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, nice to finally meet you, man.
Thanks. Yeah.
Face to
lovely
face,
meet
at least,
you
yeah.
Too. Yeah, meet you, I guess.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Can you tell us your whole story, how you got to be an actor and more particularly a voice artist?
Okay, so my journey started probably at about the age of 6, I think it was. I did my first production with my mother with Protea Stage Productions out in Benoni. It was then called Protea Choral Society. I did The Wizard of Oz. I was like the third munchkin on the left. And therein started my my love affair with all things theatre and particularly musical theatre. I finished high school and then I did a weird thing. I got offered quite a few bursaries to go and study musical theatre or drama at UCT, etc. And I turned them all down to go do a degree in economics at Wits. Just so that I could, I think the thinking was back then that I wanted to get a plan B. I was a bit more, pedantic about my thinking. So I thought that might be sort of quite a prudent thing to do. And so I did that and I ended up spending most of my time on campus with all the drama students anyway. So nonetheless, I got my degree. And my mother then said to me, well, listen, I'd been doing a lot of Amdram and stuff, and I'd been doing quite a bit of work at Wits Drama School with some of the students there. And she said to me, well, listen, I'll give you 6 months and, you can stay, I'll sponsor your 6 months. Let's see if we can get you an agent and let's see how it goes from there. And so I found an agent pretty quickly. I auditioned for The King and I got my first gig at the State Theatre. I was in The King and I never looked back. My entry into the voiceover world was a little bit slower than that. I eventually ended up I was in London for about 6 years. I didn't do much acting over there. I went into the corporate world, thought I'd explore what this economics degree had given me, hated it, and then moved back to South Africa. The first gig that I had was with a guy called James Alexander, who's also quite a prominent voice artist in the country. He now lives in Los Angeles, and myself and James explored the idea of, sort of the voice industry, and it had opened up quite a lot from the time that, before I left. There were lots of barriers to entry. There wasn't this whole sort of online space that we now inhabit. Being an actor and full of me, my sort of, I don't know, a sense of my own ability, I thought, this voiceover thing, I've got it waxed. And I recorded a whole bunch of demos, and then I drove around Johannesburg to all the advertising agencies, knocked on doors, dropped off the CDs, the copywriters, etc., and then sat back and waited. And the phone didn't ring, and the phone didn't ring, and the phone didn't ring. And I eventually got hold of my agent again. I said, what's going on with these things? I've recorded these voice demos and stuff. And I have a great ear for accents and all that sort of stuff. I got in touch with a well-known voice artist. I said to him, listen, why don't you just have a listen to these for me? And he listens to them. And he said, yeah, the reason why you're not getting called is because they're shit. I re-recorded them all. Just as I just recorded them, we were sort of getting into the world of MP3s and stuff. So I was able to email my I did a skills clip with a guy who produced the Fresh Show back then, and he mixed this beautiful skills clip together for me, and I sent that out. And then by then I'd taken some time to really listen to what it is that is a voice artist, what it requires to be a voice artist, and sort of the skill that you have. So, and this is something that I teach my students when I teach them. I said to them, listen, just because you're a good actor doesn't mean you're going to be a good voice artist. You know what I mean? They're completely separate skills. And, you have to really practice it, The weird thing happened was just before my mom passed away about 3 years ago. And she said to me, but the last year that she was alive, she said, isn't it amazing? Don't you think that you earn your living being a voice artist? And I said to her, well, no, not really. I mean, I kind of, go hand in hand with the theater and whatever. And she says, no, you remember when you were a little boy, the one thing that one thing that was always your stocking filler was a cassette player, those little single cassette players with the built-in internal microphone. And I used to write little scripts and record my voice and play it back until the tapes were stretched. I needed a new cassette recorder. And that was sort of my childhood. I used to write plays and get all my friends involved, and we record them and whatever. So yeah, it's quite weird that something I've been doing since I was 4, probably. I now earn a living doing, which is quite amazing,
And I bet you didn't know what voiceovers were when you were 4.
No, didn't have a clue. Not a clue. Yeah, I have to say that it's a labor of love. I think it's one of those things. Do something that you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. I mean, as you know, I'm sure there's a hustle. There's a massive hustle goes with it, but it never feels like it's hard work because we love it so much. You know what I mean? So yeah, so that's basically my journey, and I still get in front of the camera every now and again. I still produce, but in the main, yeah, I have my little studio at the back of my house, and that's how I pay the bills, as it were.
So during the pandemic, you were already kitted out with your studio.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem whatsoever. So I think what it did was it made me upgrade a few things. I went and I made sure that everything was okay. I soundproofed my space a bit better. I think that's one of the key things when you've got your own little home studio is how you've treated the room around you. You know what I mean? Because you can there are lots of good microphones in the market and whatever, but it's how you've treated the space around you. That's the key thing.
What microphone do you have?
I like Rode, hey? So I have a USB one that I take on the road with me, the latest NT USB, and I have the NT2A in my studio. Yeah, so I just like the way that it sounds in my voice, and they're also fairly they're not that expensive. I think you can pick up the Rode, the USB for like $3,500, and the NT2A for like I think it's $7,000. So it's, they're not too bad. Then obviously with the NT2 you need an audio box, it's an XLR microphone, but yeah.
Fabulous. I've also got that's an NT1A.
Have you?
Yeah, and the one I'm
There's
recording
an NT1A
on now,
there.
Yeah, and this one here is a NT USB Mini.
Yeah, cool, man. I think they're really good. They never break. They're always they always work. And what do you use when you record? What software do you use?
Adobe Audition. And you?
Oh, do you? Okay, I use Audacity. Yeah, yeah, it's great. It's free. And I think nowadays as well, I think it's very seldom that you actually get asked to mix, the stuff for the people that you record for.
Do you do all your own editing?
If they ask for it, I do. But 9 times out of 10, I'm sending it to an engineer and he doesn't want anything done to it. You know what I mean? So I take out the breaths all the time. I always do quite quickly cut them out while I'm going. But I generally just send the raw uncompressed audio and then they do their thing. That's how they prefer it. You know what I mean? So sending it to a client hasn't got a then I'll do it. Then I'll do a bit of work on the side. But generally, 9 times out of 10, it's just the raw voice, the raw WAV file that goes through to them.
In which case, Audacity is perfect.
Exactly. It's perfect.
If you're enjoying this interview, give it a thumbs up. So you mentioned earlier that being an actor doesn't mean you'll necessarily be a good at doing voiceovers. Would you say that you need acting training to do voiceovers, though?
I think you have to have a natural lack for it, I think. I mean, I didn't go to drama school, so I learned everything that I learned on the job, But I think it definitely helps. I think I think your ear gets tuned in a certain way, when you're doing acting, and particularly for if you're doing if you're doing a lot of accent work like I do, having a good ear helps. You know what I mean? So that musical theater ear, it really helps when you're listening to your voice and you can pitch it in the right frequencies and stuff. You know what I mean? The other thing that stands you in good stead is not being shocked by hearing your own voice when it gets played back to you. You know what I mean? It's a really big thing because I teach graduating students at Oakfields, and we do like a little voice masterclass. And the first thing that I say to them, I said, when we get into the studio and when I play it back to you, I want you to prepare yourself for the shock of hearing yourself over the speakers, because you're going to sound completely, you know what I mean? So I think that's another thing as well, that, if you're out there and you're publicly speaking on a stage or whatever it is, you do get used to the sound of your own voice. You know what I mean? If you're a good actor and, it certainly lends itself, but it certainly doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a good voice artist. Being a voiceover artist is, like I say, it's a completely separate skill.
Before the pandemic, were you doing more work, voiceover work in studio live with directors and clients, or already in this?
I was trying to convince my clients for a long time before the pandemic hit, saying, listen, I don't have to be there. We can source connect. We can do it I can stay here. I don't have to come out and see you. So it's definitely changed. The pandemic has definitely changed the way that I work with a lot of my clients. And it's also, I think, like I said earlier, that there is a definite hustle being a voice artist. You know what I mean? There really is. You've got to stay on it all the time. You've got to keep out sending new stuff and remixing things. And, you just got to keep reminding people that you're there. And I think what the pandemic did as well is it really forced you to kind of go, okay, cool, man. So I can't, but I don't necessarily just have to be limited to what's available in South Africa. There's a whole bunch of work out there that's available, internationally.
Do you use those platforms, those online platforms at all, or are you really relying on your agent?
No. I've always relied on myself first and foremost, so I'm the one who sends out my skills clips and I send them out to, I have an email database. It's constantly changing, obviously, because copywriters move around, more than hot water. It's unbelievable. So you have to keep up with where they're at next, But yeah, there are a couple of online platforms that I've found. There are some guys who you've got to be picky and you've got to set your rate, but things like Fiverr, I've had quite a lot of success there, but I've stuck to my rates, and because I'm pretty sticky about that, and I try and sort of hammer that in, particularly on our group, on the Savoa group, and et cetera, when we're all working together as a cohesive unit. I think it's very important that we, no matter how tough things get, that we stick to sort of a pricing model that's kind of, similar for all of us. Because I think once we start undercutting and sort of, and then we're giving a 40% discount on something, to try and build it back up again is, it's really, really difficult. So like I say, so things like Fiverr, I stick to my price. My price is what I charge in South Africa, and that's what it is. And I've had some, obviously I don't necessarily do the same volume as a whole bunch of people, but I've had a fairly good success rate on there, But like I say, I mean, I certainly don't charge what some guys charge. I don't know how they do it. It's ridiculous what they, what they give their voice away for. So
that's actually very interesting what you said about Fiverr, because there's a lot of people who think, what, Fiverr? If you're on Fiverr, you're going to be selling for $5, and that's ridiculous. But as you said, you can actually charge quite well. How do you
can, as long as I just stick to my price.
So you don't think that clients will see somebody selling at $5 and they'll go, well, I'd rather buy that one?
That's fine if they do. That's all good. They can do that. No problem. I don't care.
But they still,
if they want to,
they
still come to, and I think particularly with being authentic about what you do in terms of, okay, so my normal delivery is a South African accent. I can tweak it a bit, and I can make, I have a number of British accents and stuff, but what I offer you is quite an authentic thing. It's a South African voice, and it sounds pretty. I have a lot of clients who sort of come back to me and say it's quite weird that we have this cross section of clients who really like listening to your voice, because it's sort of very kind of middle of the roadish for our people to hear. So there's a lot of power in sticking to what what your own authentic voice. You know what that is. And like I say, if people want to come and use me, well, my price is on there, and that's what it is. And if you don't, then well, move along.
Exactly. And you're still getting work, which proves that Fiverr isn't all about the $5. So that's great.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, for sure. Because that was my main thing about it. I wanted to make sure that I was able to set the price on that, because a lot of people said, well, you charge a $5 essentially. I was like, well, that won't work for me, but you don't know. You go on there and you set your own price.
That's really good to know for the people out there, because there's been a lot of controversy about it.
The biggest thing at the moment, I think, is with the pandemic, and obviously we're all kind of clambering for a little piece of the pie and trying to, things are tough, and we understand that. It's just to make sure that we don't undersell ourselves in order to get work, that there is our collective understanding of, okay, cool, a 5-minute corporate video we would charge this for, and this is what we charge for 3 months usage on a radio ad that's 30 seconds long, and that we kind of stick to that, because as soon as we start discounting it way too much, then our struggles have only just begun in trying to get it back up there again. You know what I mean? I think if we're going to survive this properly, that's one of the things I think we have to really, really pay attention to, and make sure that we all kind of, are on the same page when it comes to our fees and stuff. Hence the reason why I said, I have no problem anyone asking me about Fiverr, because I go, well, cool, but you can go on my Fiverr page and you'll see that I charge the same that I would charge here. I don't get as many gigs, but nonetheless, it's important. You know what I mean? I think if we don't have each other's backs, we're in trouble,
Is there a rate guide that you would recommend for people to look at to base their rates on?
Yeah, there's the PMA rate guide, which is, I don't know if it's public knowledge anymore. And then Andrew Sutherland, who has voiced me. Andrew's rate card is pretty concise and pretty, and it's on a par with the PMA rate schedule. So, most of the guys, I would imagine, are represented by an agent from the PMA. A lot of the voice artists are, I know that. So there's Intertalent and, contractors, et cetera, et cetera. So they all kind of work from a PMA rate schedule. So, you can always get one from them, or just ask Andrew. I'm sure he'd be happy to share the Voice Me rate guide that he's got there.
So you're also a director and a producer, right? Do you ever cast voice actors in any of your work?
I do, absolutely, yeah. I find I used to do a lot of writing for my own voice, but obviously I think the demographics and sort of, the need for other voices is, a lot more prevalent in the South African market, particularly now. So I write and I cast. Yeah, I cast across the board for various clients that I have. So generally, obviously, you'd like to write something that you can deliver yourself with your own voice, but if it calls for an African male voice, well, that I certainly can't do. So happy to, I have a whole bunch of guys that I'm happy to give the work to. That's the thing I like about, the voiceover industry and the sort of the guys that I kick around with and have been doing for the last 25 years, I suppose. There's a nice family feel to it, We all kind of look after each other, and there's a lot of skill sharing that goes on. There's stuff like this, the things that you are doing, and we're all kind of happy to give one another a hand up,
That's great. Not all industries are so connected like that. So when you cast voices in your work, how do you choose one talent over another?
I don't. I generally give a client like 4 voices and I let them choose. I have a couple of guys that I, that I like working with, that I know that will be able to deliver timelessly without any hassle and stuff. Your personality and how you are to work with in studio, and are you affable? Are you a nice person, etc., etc. That also counts for a lot. So I generally recommend a couple of guys, and then I send them off, and then I let the clients choose.
What are your words of advice for somebody starting out in the voiceover industry?
I think anyone starting out in the voiceover industry, the first thing I would say to you is just get assessed. Get assessed by someone who either is a voice coach or has been doing it for a bit. Let them spend some time with you. Put your voice on tape. What am I talking about? Put your voice on, on computer, and then have a listen to it and make sure that I tell my students a couple of things. There are a couple of things that they mustn't be offended by when they come into studio, and I don't necessarily recommend that they do it. Genetics has a lot to do with it. How your voice sounds, simple as that. It's just one of those things, and so you have to be very, very cognizant of that. So first of all, find out if you've got the kind of voice that people would like to listen to. And then also think, that hand in hand with that is how that voice gets delivered. So when you're given a 25-second or a 30-second script to read, how do you sound saying those words in terms of where you put the intonation, where you put the pauses, etc., where you put the light and the shade? Is that something that comes naturally to you? And then if those things are sort of kind of in place, then yeah, absolutely, give it a go. Get yourself a coach. Make sure that you studiously listen to the radio all the time, audio books, those sorts of things, and get used to recording yourself on your phone, and listening back to how you sound. Practice, and understand that it's a tough gig. It's not an easy gig. It's sort of, there are a lot of doors that you've got to knock down, and you've got to keep at it. You've got to keep going. You've got to keep, I never stop practicing, I think, and they say the first sign of madness is talking to yourself. Well, I say I'm on the hustle for more work. So that's why I do it, but I would say that that's probably your first thing to think about, is to make sure that, you've got the pipes to do it.
Speaking of agents, do you think it's indispensable to have an agent to represent you?
No, I think you can definitely you can enter the industry without an agent. You just have to speak to the right people. And I think that, like when I first started, there's a lot of graft involved with just getting, for picking up the phone and finding out who the radio producer is at, say, Ogilvy, who the radio producer is at, all the big advertising agencies, and then find out who the multimedia production companies are, the guys who shoot corporate AV, and one of those people. Build up a database. And then make sure that the demo that you're sending out is a good one. Spend a lot of time working on that. And I think I'm a big fan of the 45-second to 1 minute demo that sort of covers a whole bunch of things. So if you go and check out my VoiceMe profile, I've got a few skills montages up there. But I think those are always a good one because people are pushed for time. So if you're going to email somebody, have them click on one thing, and then they can get a fair sense of what you can do. And then if they need anything more specific, they can always get back to you and say, listen, that's really cool. Do you have something more along these lines? It's a bit more hard sell, maybe a bit more conversational, whatever it is, But I think that's a very, very important thing, is to make sure that you spend a lot of time getting that done. And I think maybe then it might be worth your while to bring in a coach of some sort who can just sit with you in the studio, sit with you for half an hour before or an hour before to work out some creases and stuff, go into the studio, get a bit of direction while you're recording it. and then, get on to sending it. Yeah, I don't think you don't necessarily have to have an agent, but I think it's helpful. It's nice to have, because the agents still get contacted a lot by, people who need a voice. And so then you get recommended. So I'm kind of like, as many pots on the boil as you can have, essentially, you know what I mean? So get an agent, do your own stuff, get onto these voice sites like Fiverr, Voice Archive, which is also a really good one. I spend quite a bit of time there. And again, you've got to be clear about how much you charge for stuff. Sometimes people sort of run away with their eyes, at the back of their head. But nonetheless, if that's the deal, that's the deal. That's how much it costs, And people, and I think there's the other thing is, we've been doing this for a while. So people say, but it only takes you 5 minutes to record it. But there's a reason it only takes me 5 minutes to record it. It's because I've been doing it for 25 years. You're not just paying for that 5 minutes, you're paying for the 25 years that I've been doing it for, So.
And the equipment.
That you've got, exactly, yeah. And it's not a cheap thing, is it?
You also do coaching then?
I do, yeah. I like to spend my time with the students that are graduating from drama schools and like I say, Oakfield's musical theatre. I like going and sort of sharing a part of our industry and a part of being a creative that a lot of them sometimes don't even think about. You know what I mean? They're so unaware of the fact that there is this industry where you can earn a fairly good living doing it, and I love sharing that knowledge. And the one-on-one coaching, if I find the time, I coach someone, who's just flown into the industry and doing so well. So I do that every now and again, if I have the time. But I prefer to do it in a classroom setting. The students that I teach, it's part of their musical theatre course. So my good friend Jackie, who runs the course there, and it's her school, she likes to get pros in from all different facets of the industry. So they're primarily getting taught how to sing properly. So they go to vocal training for singing. They don't necessarily go to vocal coaching, but they do spend time with vocal coaches and people like myself. So yeah, but I think Oakfields do have a voiceover course that they do run as well. I'm not sure. I'm not involved with that one, but I'm sure they offer it. The Boxburg campus definitely does. Oakfields College, underneath that banner, they have a musical theatre course that they offer, and they turn out some really amazingly talented students. So I go there once a year and spend 2 hours talking to them and giving them a bit of a up down of what the industry is about and what, with all sorts of different deliveries, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then I get them in studio on their own for like half an hour, and we work a couple of scripts that we've given them and stuff. And we take it from there. And, there are, like I say, there are a number of kids who they come there and I say to them, possibly, maybe. And then there's some who don't, you can't be offended by that, because like I said to you, there's so much about this that is just, what you've been given physically that you can do.
If somebody wanted to ask you some questions, where could they reach you? My
Facebook page is @Muzzatropolis. I also have an Instagram page, also @Muzzatropolis. It's MUZZATROPOLIS, Muzzatropolis, where I do all things voice and all things creative. So it's like a city of voice. I like to think of it like that. So they can get hold of me there if they want to ask any questions. Just drop me a DM there. Quite happy to always. I'm like I say, I'm geared towards our industry being as transparent as it possibly can. So you know what I mean? I think that the less barriers to entry there are for people, the better it is. And I think also that we're honest about it. You know what I mean? So I don't blow smoke up anyone. You know what I mean? If they come to me and they say to me, cool, I'm thinking about being a voice artist. I'm like, well, cool, come spend some time with me, and then we'll take it from there before I give you any advice whatsoever about whether or not you should be in our business or not, But nonetheless, at least we can have that first sit down and stuff and, explore whether or not this might be a career for you, And the other thing I will say, and I think I mentioned it before, is that, don't forget to stick to what you're good at, you know what I mean? So your authentic voice is something that, is something to, to be treasured. You can do as many accents in the world as you want, but nonetheless, I found a lot of that, a lot of people are a lot more interested, particularly on the international sides. They're a lot more interested in just my straight South African accent. They really are. They kind of go, wow, I like the way that sounds. Can you send me a demo of that particular voice with the script? And 9 times out of 10, they'll go, yeah, perfect. That's what we want, So I think being authentic, I think that's an important thing. And it stands you in good stead in so many ways in our business,
So Absolutely. Do you think there's a market for South African voices out there internationally?
The more sort of middle of the road South African accent, not necessarily, too much like that. They don't like the flat sounds too much, but so you're not going to get away with that. You're not going to get away with, too many colloquial accents. This is a South African accent. You just stick the middle of the road one. They seem to like that quite a bit, particularly in Germany. I get a lot of work from Germany, weirdly enough.
It's the
which is nice.
international neutral accent that everybody can relate to.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. That's great to know for all the artists out there who are thinking, well, maybe there isn't much of a market. Some people are saying, oh, there's no work in voiceover these days anymore.
Yeah, obviously there's you've got to be careful, like I say, with a lot of these sites, particularly with Fiverr and Voice Bunny, and I'm a free member on, I think, Voice 123, and I've sent off countless auditions. I never get any work there. I think it has to do with the fact that I haven't paid the fees. I think as soon as I pay the membership fees, I may get some work. But I keep saying to them, if I get a job through you, you can have the money for the membership fees, but it doesn't seem to work. So I've just given up. I've given up. And Voice Bunny, I don't know, they seem to want you to record your voice in an underground bunker that, is only sort of inhabitable by cockroaches, because they keep sending stuff back, kind of going, oh, there's an echo there, there's this and that. I'm like, I just give up. I can't be bothered with you. There are so many site aggregators and stuff, and so many people who seem to be doing voiceovers. But I think, I think if you're good, and I think like I say, you bring a bit of personality and you're nice to work with, and you work hard and you market yourself properly, there's work there. There's work. Yeah, it's like anything, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter what it is, it's the talent is, it is what it is, but it's the hard work that goes with it. And I think for us particularly, you reach a certain level where, okay, cool, the voice skill is where it is, and that can be improved here and there and stuff, but for the most part, it's your hustle. That's what it is. It's, how often are you emailing people with your new stuff? And that sometimes, I think particularly for creatives, they feel, oh, I feel bad about you. No, don't feel bad about it. Every 2 months, I have a thing that goes out. Every 2 or 3 months, certain clients, and I send out going, hey, man, haven't heard from you a bit. Yeah, have a listen to this. This is what I've been up to. What do you think? Use it, don't use it, whatever. You know what I mean? It doesn't hurt nowadays. They can easily just delete the email or not listen to the voice clip. Simple as that. Or just, tell me to remove their name from my database, which I dutifully do.
Personal marketing.
It's key. It really is key. Yeah. Have a repository where your voice is, where you can point people to, because obviously you can't send all the stuff in one email. So make sure that you leave a link on your email that you're sending them saying, all my other stuff is here. They can click through and they can link it to, a profile that you have somewhere. If you've got if you've got your own website, or, if you're on a voice project like Voice Me, which now, if you're a premium member there, you get to 20 clips. Seriously, if people can't find your voice out of the 20 clips that are on there, then they're looking for someone else. You know what I mean?
Well, that was so much information.
I'll just say, it's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you so very much.
Thanks a lot.
Nice to meet you finally, hey?
Lovely to meet you too.
Cheers, man. Bye.
Thanks for watching Talking Voiceovers. If you don't want to miss the next episodes, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell button.